What's the good word, y'all? It's your boy DKB here. For those that have noticed, Robert Saleh has done a lot of due diligence this offseason in evolving our practice habits and essentially the way we operate training camp, OTAs, rookie mini camp, etc. as a whole. And it's been impressive, right? I think the results speak for themselves when you talk about the number of players that have been able to stand out, that have had multiple moments where they flashed, and it's not just relegated to the defensive side of the ball. You can even see offensively. I don't know if I said that twice. It's not relegated strictly to the defense. Offensively, you can see some of that going on as well, where you see guys like Ferkser, the tight end, flashing during preseason games. You have our duo of rookie running backs that have been able to ball out. Xavier Gipson taking the next step. Plenty of moments from the likes of Jason Brownlee, and the list goes on, right? You start taking a look at the offensive line. Olu Fashanu looking like he'll live up to the first round hype. Max Mitchell, Carter Warren having some of their moments. Cole Lavau having some of his moments, right? So plenty of things to love, but it was the thoughts from Aaron Rodgers offensively and Quincy Williams defensively, two of our top players, if you wanted to rank a top 5 or top 10 list, that really spoke to me about just how effective this has been. You have Aaron Rodgers commenting about this being his hardest training camp within the last 7 to 8 years. And then we just heard Quincy Williams' thoughts about this, where he mentioned this is really his hardest training camp since about his freshman year of college, right? So one of the things that stood out to me about Quincy's stuff, right? I think Aaron Rodgers does a great job of elaborating his own thoughts and how that translates to the field, and with his vast experience being able to give us ample examples of what exactly he's trying to demonstrate. But from Quincy's perspective, you know, he mentioned this being a mental and physical taxation, right? You take a look at what Robert Saleh's done. He just came off a press conference at some point this week where he was asked about how many snaps do we think we've taken this year, and he ballparked the number around about 800, right? And that was about 2, 3, maybe 4 practices ago. And so realistically, when you take a look at the workload, right, if you go based off snap counts in 2023, there was only about 6 guys that even matched or eclipsed 800 snaps last year. So for all of our first string guys, you're talking about them getting the equivalent of 3/4 or almost a full season's worth of development over the course of this offseason. And then now they get to go into the regular season and double up on that as well. So it's like he, hit a pack a punch, a times 2 experience for the New York Jets this offseason, and I couldn't be more excited for it, right? I think with all of the doubts that we've had about not playing our starting units and even some of our key role players throughout the course of these preseason games, I think this in of itself speaks volumes that we're going to be able to go out there and handle ourselves just fine, right? Some of the key themes that Quincy hit on when he was talking about these Jets training camp practices was starting fast, right? Having all of these ample opportunities to not just have the snaps for the sake of having them, but also knowing that you're going against the likes of an Aaron Rodgers. And when he's leaving, you also have a very, very capable backup in Tyrod Taylor. I would even argue one of the highest level backups in Tyrod Taylor that can also go out there and facilitate this offense. And just look at the numerous deep bombs that you'll hear on reports all throughout training camp of Tyrod Taylor perfectly dropping dimes on deep shots. He talked about the durability aspect. So this is one of the hugest components. The Jets being one of the most injured teams the last couple of years, whether that's fluke or otherwise. And then also the duality of understanding that the league is getting a little bit softer, right? We're not practicing as long. We're not practicing as hard necessarily. And most teams don't have a full cadre of all pros and pro bowlers lined up throughout the roster like we've been able to develop or we've acquired. So part of that is this callous effect that we heard Robert Saleh talk about, where it hurts now, but it's only going to prep them for this long season as best as possible, right? And I think we're seeing the returns on that. This has probably been the least amount of injuries that I've seen reported, and nothing that's truly significant in quite some time here. So it's definitely seeming like it's paying off for us. I couple that with the fact that it's not lost on me that we made some changes to our Atlantic Health and Performance Department. And to my knowledge, we still haven't replaced those guys, by the way. So I think the vision that he's had for this particular training camp, he's hit all of the boxes that we want. And then personally, some of the things from Quincy's stuff is tracking and pursuit that he's talked about. So we know that the defense doesn't really do tackling. They stand up people in terms of making contact and then making sure nobody hits the ground, et cetera, et cetera. But he really talked about and kind of defined what that means and what it looks like out there on the field, right? Because even for all of the highlights and some of the footage and stuff we capture, I don't think many people really realize that it's not live tackling out there, right? He talked about tracking and pursuit and how that gets developed, right? Taking the appropriate angles, understanding to stay in a guy's hip pocket, and then once the season comes along, you're no longer worried about, I got to protect my guy. You can go out there and seek blood, right? And I think from the course of what we've seen in many of these preseason games, how many times have you seen busted coverages, right, due to poor angles? How many times have you seen guys just racking up monster yards after catch, run after catch opportunities? It really has been few and far in between, if any, this so far. And I think, at least to this point, a lot of the PFF grades that I've seen kind of reflect real life for a lot of these guys. When you see names like Shamar Bartholomew, the cornerback, when you see names like JBC going out there and shining, Brady McGregor on the line, or an Eric Watt, Will McDonald, right? Tons of these guys that are going to be pivotal to us or that are going to be up and coming risers, hopefully, for us. It's all just seeming like it's culminating perfectly. So I did want to give Robert Saleh his due credit, due diligence, his kudos, if you will, for what he's been able to pull off this season. And also keep in mind, he's done all of this with this looming Hassan Reddick drama over his head, and unfortunately he's had to speak to it essentially every time he's come to the podium, even though, and whether he requested for us to go out there and trade, or he wanted them, or he just agrees and approves with the idea, ultimately he has no control over what's happening with this contract situation, right? So he's still done what he's been able to accomplish his entire tenure here, which is protect his guys on the field, both from a media coverage standpoint as well as performance-wise, and really minimizing the negativity around the Jets, right? Everything is in-house. Everything is kind of trade secret-like, which I think we've gotten away from the last two off seasons or so. So I'm really hyped for this season. I know we're not playing any starters and stuff for the Giants, and to be honest, I love the preseason games really so I can see these second, third string guys, feel like I've hit on an undrafted free agent that I really like since the beginning of the cycle, etc., etc. But let me know what you guys think. What has been your biggest takeaways from training camp so far? Looking forward to it, and I'll catch you guys again. Peace.